You're listening to a 4x4 Radio Network podcast.
Hey Jeeples, Kevin here from On the Trail with Kevin and Scott. This is show, Scott, you said
113, I think.
113, you think. Okay.
I'm almost positive.
Almost
I can guarantee a definite maybe.
So, anyway, I'm Kevin, as I mentioned. I'm the engineer. I'm the guy who reads instructions, uses the right tools, and generally follows those instructions.
And I'm Scott. I'm the guy that can absolutely guarantee the possibility of a to be continued, but optimally of a guarantee positively, absolutely. But other than that, I am Scott. I am the slapstick parts guy on a continual mission to fuel my further incoherent ramblings with cocaine. Or not cocaine. Jeez Louise.
Lord. Where did the... Caffeine.
Caffeine.
They're different
Whoa.
chemicals. They really are different chemicals.
There goes our family show. If you haven't already guessed, I guess I've had my nose in a book and I am literally fueled on caffeine.
Yes, we're looking over here at student Scott, who is now several days ahead as of this recording
With
in his
no
schoolwork.
sleep. But other than that, I am the person that does not read a torque wrench. I do sometimes ask for Kevin when I need help with some things, like the intro still to this day. 5 years, you think I get it right. But on that, we will share what worked for us as well as the don't do drugs, kids. We always share, please do your research, read the instructions,
And of course, follow those
them.
instructions. That's what they're there for.
I'm like an overly caffeinated squirrel on a hot tin roof. Just call me Twitchy.
I think there's a character under DreamWorks by that, you know.
Yeah, I know. Hoodwinked. Great
Scratch.
movie. Yeah, Scratch.
Well, folks, this is going to be a little bit of a different show. I think we talked about the format a little bit after I calmed it down a little bit. I'm starting to get irritated again.
Yeah. Well, I do want to do some quick housekeeping initiatives.
Yes, let's go ahead and get through the housekeeping, and
I'm gonna walk up and thump the glass to the aquarium. I'm gonna shake the mongooses cage. I'm gonna get him riled up because you know what's funny is Kevin's wearing a white shirt and turquoise pants, but no, purple pants. Basically, for those of
blue
you,
jeans.
Yes, welcome to the wonderful our 4th season here in Florida. It's pollen season.
Yes, it is.
So is it COVID or is it pollen? But as we always talk about,
Both can kill you.
yes, exactly. Again, it's the weather's starting to change. It's kind of nice, and you know,
Yeah, don't make them jealous, folks. We are having our spring,
yeah,
which means the leaves fall.
because of the drought.
Just down here, leaves fall in the spring.
Exactly. But one of the cool things is following spring coming up, we have Jeep Beach.
Yes, we do.
We're going to go to it. We're going to
Yes,
say
we
hi.
are.
We're going
Back to an event.
Yes,
Oh,
back to an event. And this guy cannot wait. And we'll get to some of the carnage of Jeeping with Judd here in a little bit. But other than that, I can now say that I have now joined the ranks after cobbling this lift together 1,000 times.
Oh, on the LJ?
Yeah, Dory said, I don't care. You're not spending another dime fixing this lift. We're done. We're ordering you a lift. So currently, Metal Cloak is currently hopefully boxing my 3.5 Game Changer lift with the aluminum double adjustable arms because I thought that might be a better way to go. So it'll be here soon, and hopefully we'll follow up because thanks to Kevin here and his gracious... needing to get stuff out of his garage. I now have a steering box too, and also another
And the steering shaft.
Well, we'll cover the steering shaft in a second.
Well, yeah.
So the quantum entanglement's going to get some love because my leak in my rear axle shaft seal is getting worse. But I got an axle shaft we had slapped right in it.
Already with the bearing,
Already
the
with
wedding
the bearing.
band, the seals, and all that on it?
Yep, all done. And then I'm
right.
also going to go ahead and do the brakes back there.
Well, they're probably a little bit saturated.
Well, remember it was metal to metal.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, well, then they're lubricated well so that they don't squeal.
Exactly. It's just disturbing. Well, I don't have a parking brake. I don't know. I got a concrete block back there. But anyways, so hopefully more updates to follow. I will weed out the laziness from my Jeep and have more stuff to show and go from there. But interesting segue here, Kevin, on the idea of LJs. So I was on the LJ forums, and as is always a great form of entertainment, a person on there was selling a Ruby Hara, And as you know, those are the very rare Rubicon / Saharas. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Their number plates on the dash. And it was great because this person was selling at 40,000 miles with a hard top. Mm-hmm. It was customized. It had the chrome tube bumpers. Twitch.
Very 1974.
Yes, very 1974.
Of course, that predates the TJs. That's back in the CJ era. But hey, you know,
Tomato,
maybe it's
potato.
retro.
Exactly. And they wanted $22,000 for it, which seemed reasonable until you started looking at the pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is that, everyone said, that's a lot of money, blah, blah, blah. Everyone always talks about how pricing themselves out, yada, 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 waddle, whatever you want to talk about, flatulent giraffe, I don't know. But the idea is that when you start looking at the pictures, it's like, wow, the front looks a little orangey, like where the bumpers welds were.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's some of that dripping rust there on the bumper. And then you did the side profile, and the entire underside of the Jeep was orange.
Brown, yeah.
Yeah, and you go, wow. And then the back side of the Jeep, where the bumper mounts, is orange. And everyone's like, I'd like to stab that frame with a screwdriver.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it flashback to my helping one of my coworkers with his Jeep. I walked up and I grabbed the screwdriver, and I start stabbing the frames. Like, what are you doing? Making sure the frame's not dead. By stabbing it? Yes. So I'm stabbing that, and I'm like, everyone started talking about this, and Kevin, why is your eye twitching?
Just go ahead, Scott. We'll get to it soon enough.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. As I'm sitting here, in case you guys want to know, this is called building drama in the radio world. I'm poking the bear, getting ready to unleash an angry father. Exactly. Because this person is obviously, everyone on the thread did something. Mm-hmm. They looked at something and said, uh-oh, orange flag. Can't even say red flag. Orange flag. Time to look at some stuff. Mm-hmm. And as I'm telling Kevin this story, no kidding, he's like, he started to grow and get green. And I'm like, what? And then I started realizing, wait a minute, there's a picture of Kevin with a slice of pizza next to a frame. And I think there's where I'm going to let the segue go.
Yeah, that's probably good. Folks, this show's going to be a little different. It's going to be a little bit of us. There's going to be some tech. There's going to be some drama.
Dirty words.
Some dirty words, which I'm going to try not to bleep out.
I got my phone here to take pictures of the time code.
There's going to be some... I'm very... It's a story that makes me upset on many levels.
As a Jeeper, as a father, as a friend, as a technician.
Yeah. And as a guy who's bought and sold Jeeps.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And a lot of this will be opinion. I will do my best to talk opinion as opposed to when it's fact, it's fact. When it's opinion, it's opinion.
Yeah.
But let's just jump straight into the story. I'm going to set the stage.
Which is very interesting.
A gentleman who we will go by the name of Don, not his real name, although he did tell me I could. I don't really feel the need to put him to any more embarrassment.
Like Dragnet, the names have been changed to protect the innocent.
And the guilty right? And everybody else, yeah. Okay. Don went out like a... Don is a single father with older kids. I don't know the whole story, but his daughters either just turned 16 or 17.
Yeah.
And like many of us, self-included, went out to get his daughter a Jeep.
Yeah.
Wanted to share the Jeeping lifestyle with his daughter. So he went and he bought a Jeep locally in Florida, but not here in the Tampa Bay region where we're based.
Right.
Over in the big one where the guy with the round ears is.
Bring it.
And no, it wasn't bought from them, though. I do not know the backstory enough to tell you whether it was a person or a dealership.
Yeah.
So we'll start off there.
Yeah.
He brings it home. It's really cool. They put wheels and tires on it, and that's really great. Nobody's said anything to him, you know. And he's had it to a couple of shops. And they go out and they do a light wheeling. Not that we have anything but light wheeling around here.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the line, after that wheeling trip, chaos begins to break free.
And you made an interesting point about how a good thing happened.
Yes. This is a good thing, folks.
And it's weird.
He had an underhood Jeep fire. Okay. On the driver's side, the Jeep literally caught fire. And I'm not going to tell you the whole story behind that because it drives some of the other train.
Right.
But suffice to say, it disabled the Jeep. The fire burned up wiring. It burned up vacuum hoses. It took out the master cylinder and the booster. Booster probably would have worked, but it wasn't. You're not going to play with something on that safety level. Just didn't put a new one in. Wildly enough, they got the hood open and then got the fire out before it actually burnt the paint. So there was no exterior witness marks of this other than some smokiness.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me backtrack and tell you about the Jeep a little bit. It looked really good, okay? It had some known rust issues, but these were all things that the father, Don, had kind of taken into account. It had some perforations of the floor pans,
Right.
but very minor, and his father knows how to weld, so it was not a big deal. They were going to buy 2 new pans and have them weld them in. So that was a known. The 2 front fenders, it's a TJ, have that classic TJ rot, on the flat area where dirt gets packed in that seam underneath. There's a roll seam under the fender, and
between the fender flare and the fender.
And it causes bubbling, and they were bubbling, and he again knew that, saw that, not a problem. He was going to do a flat fender conversion, one of the typical kits. I don't know who. There's a dozen of them out there that do it. So that was all a given. The rest of it, he said from his point of view, looked good. Now, I am going to say he didn't really have the knowledge to do a dig in on a TJ. It was an 01 forest green, but beyond that, he really didn't dig in too deep into it. And kind of relied on the seller, who was pointing out the work had been done and this was in a great condition and yada, yada, yada.
The sales pitch.
Yeah, the sales pitch. And again, I can't tell you folks, I'm sorry. I don't know if it was a person or a used car dealership.
Yeah.
But whichever, I'm going to start right off with an opinion. Deception, lies, and I'm going to tell you their actions could have resulted in serious death.
Yeah, it was criminal.
It was criminal, okay? Now, that's an opinion of mine.
Yes.
But here's what actually happened. The Jeep was towed to our friend Ron's shop, Red Scorpion. You've heard us talk about it. And for Don's sake, we're fortunate that Ron's got a soft touch when somebody gets shafted.
Yeah.
Okay. But Ron thought he had a burned out, wiring issue with some source of ignition.
Yeah.
He lifted it onto the lift and immediately stepped out from underneath it to put it down.
Yeah, everybody from under it.
Nobody put it down. People are like, well, what's the matter? Put it down. He said you could hear it creaking and crumbling on the lift. So what did he find? Well, he found things like spray foam house insulation into a rusted out frame and shaved off and painted.
Yeah.
At the rear mounts for the 4-link suspension, the driver's side was held on by one piece of 1/8-inch sheet steel that had been tack welded over top of it that was about 4 inches square. Otherwise, the frame would have separated. It was bad enough that when we got to the end of this project, of which we will talk about, the frame left in 4 separate pieces. Okay. Then he started looking closer, and that's when I got called for a little consult.
Yeah.
And we discovered that the brake lines to both front brakes had been replaced with copper refrigerator water tube.
Yeah, the stuff you find in a roll at your local hardware store. Yeah.
Which, I'm sorry, folks, is illegal in all 50 states, and the federal DOT rules do not allow copper. And before you ask, no, they were not NICOP, nickel copper alloy, which is legal. This was waterline. It was so soft you could bend it and snap it in your hands. Yet your average braking pressure can be in the hundreds of PSI, even 1,000 under panic braking. This is what broke. Spraying brake fluid on the exhaust manifold and catalytic converters, which caused the fire. Thankfully, they broke in such a way that the Jeep was no longer drivable. All right. I'm going to go right here, right now. That's criminal. Yeah. Putting copper brake lines in, whether you know it or you don't, that is going to kill somebody, and it could kill somebody else. To sell a Jeep modified that way with foam in the frame, foam is not structural, for heaven's sakes. It's taking everything I can not to cuss right now, folks. Putting copper on brake lines. All right. I can hear somebody going, well, maybe he didn't know. Look it up. This is something that will kill somebody. The lines will actually balloon out as you hit the pedal. If you're lucky, they don't pop. They just balloon out, but you don't have brakes till you pump the pedal up again. Normally, though, they flex from vibration, like this one did, and crack off. And when they crack off, you lose that system of brakes. It was just horrendous to see what we had in there. And then, of course, the fire toasted up all the components there on the inner fender on the driver's side. Now, you know, we can go on about Don should have looked at this, should have looked at that. And believe me, we had a discussion personally about the fact that should you ever get in this situation again, you've got to look for a friend who knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
You know, most of us in the Jeep community know that Jeepers come with friends. You know, that's the whole thing of the Jeep lifestyle. And if you're not comfortable buying a used Jeep, get some help.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was like, we even talk about it on show 25. You know, you want to buy a Jeep. You know, if you're into the Jeep, you know, again, Google search, listen to the show, ask somebody on the forums. You know, again, Google. I hate, even though sometimes, you know, as a parts guy, we hate Google.
We do,
but it is very helpful. You know, I mean, the same things when you're looking to buy a car are universal when buying a Jeep. Some things are different, but looking for rust, stabbing a screwdriver
into the frame to make sure it's solid. And I mean, people may say, well, why are you so upset over it? Well, I went out and bought a used Jeep for my daughter. I knew what I was looking for. Okay. But to take advantage of somebody and then, you know, just putting people's lives in danger by doing shoddy work and then selling it. It's one thing to do shoddy work and then you drive it and kill yourself and possibly innocent bystanders. That's bad. But to do shoddy, illegal work and sell it to somebody, I'm sorry, that is criminal.
That's almost premeditated.
It's intent there.
Yeah.
It just boils me over. Go ahead.
Well, the reason why I always say, and again, my byline for a quick, is that when people always say, you know, well, we did it back then, or I used it, or it's okay, it's all the same. Okay, let me put it this way: would you want that person with that rolled copper lining be trying doing a panic stop behind your family?
Yeah.
No,
you would not, and that's the whole thing. And there were more things with the Jeep. Now, the only thing by saving's grace, like I say, he had a fire under the hood because of the work. And that fire kept him from driving the Jeep and putting himself in a situation where maybe his brakes would have failed and he would have crossed into an active intersection. Or he could have run into a school bus full of kids. Your mind can go places on that. But as a father who's taking care of his daughter and bought her a Jeep, you know, the thought of somebody selling somebody else's, you know, parent to give their child a gift, and the gift turns out to be a hornet's nest of issues. It just infuriates me. And I wouldn't trust myself to meet this individual.
Yeah.
And you can claim it's stupidity. I'm like, you know, maybe he didn't know, and I'm going to come back to you and go, in that case, he shouldn't have been doing work like that.
Yeah. And when he says maybe he didn't know, the person doing the work.
That's what I'm talking
not
about.
the person who bought it.
Yeah, I'm talking about the person doing the work.
Yeah.
That's what we always say. You know, if you're not competent to do the work yourself, go hire a shop. And it should be one of those, you know, licensed, bonded, insured kind of guys that knows what he's doing, for heaven's sakes. There are certain systems, and as funny as it is, the engine's not one of them, but the braking system, any safety system, you know, I hear people talk about, oh, I'm going to just delete the airbags. Why? You really want to die being speared on a steering wheel?
Yeah.
You know, and why would you mess with the brakes? Why would you use bad materials? I could see that as stupidity. And I'm going to be blunt. Those are my terms. I can see using copper as stupidity. Well, it's soft. It's easy to form. I can fit it. You shouldn't, but, you know, okay. But filling a frame with foam, shaving it to shape, and then painting it black.
With rubberized undercoating.
Yeah. That's not stupidity. That's intent.
Yeah.
In my book. Okay. It is my opinions, folks. Understand that. But, and this just goes to show that we in the Jeeping world, we talk about Jeepers, have friends, the Jeepers, help Jeepers, all the other things about the positivity. There are those out there that prey upon us and our particular obsession. Excuse me.
Yeah. He's upset, guys.
I'm frustrated because this is just the kind of guy I want to go out and have a conference. Let's just say a discussion with.
I think
we'll leave it at that.
I think the Marines have a phrase for that called a blanket party.
Yeah, that would be good for me. And I know a few Marine friends that probably join me on that, and a few Army friends and Air Force friends and a few other. But anyhow, and if you're listening to this podcast, go away. You don't belong on this podcast. If you're the guy that did this work and you think, I made money on this.
Sorry, I don't want you as a listener.
I don't want you as a listener. Yeah. Okay. This is not about hurting people, putting people at risk, for your profit. It's okay to charge people. I'm okay if you come around and put new brake lines on a vehicle and then charge them 3 times what it's worth. That's buyer beware. Okay. Yeah. But putting false materials in and claiming that they're good, putting people's lives at risk is just flat out wrong.
Yeah.
And I'll get off the soapbox to tell you the next part of the story.
Well, I want to step on that soapbox for a quick second. And some of us always see the one thing where we've seen the people acting stupid off trail and doing stupid things. And Kurt just posted something about someone was wheeling illegal up in Colorado or something like that. Had a trail shut down for being stupid.
Yeah.
To me, there is no difference between that and actively replacing shoddy parts. Now, there is being cheap and buying cheap parts. I do that. But the cheap parts I buy are actively made for the manufacturer. As you say, that one fancy word, buyer beware. But
laissez-faire.
Laissez-faire. But my whole point to that is that that's no different than having that same person with shoddy brakes as you're going down a steep decline on a trail, lose their brakes, smash into you, and roll your hard-earned money and Jeep and family down a hillside because someone wanted to cheap out and use copper tubing. So for the people who go
off the edge of Black Bear Pass.
Yeah, no, I've actually had friends with my father-in-law. Mm-hmm. He rode with some hardcore bikers, not Hell's Angels types, but hardcore bikers. And he told me the story about tires, about, once a year change your tires, once a year change your battery. And I'm like, that seems kind of weird. He goes, he was riding with a guy, their leader, if you will. Again, not a bike gang, but president.
Yeah.
And basically saw the guy had bald tires and gave him a warning. Hey man, you need to change your tires out. Oh no, it's fine. Okay. The next time he showed up, they went for a ride. Dude pulled his pocket knife and stabbed his tire. And they were mad. It was almost a fist fight. And he says, I don't want you to ride next to my guys. You go down, you take more of us with you. Mm-hmm. No. That mentality is the same to me. Of people going, oh, I'm fine. I can use this in copper tubing. It'll be fine. It'll be okay. You're putting everyone around you in danger.
Correct.
So sorry, that's me on the soapbox again.
And that's fine. Like I said, this one hits home every time I find work that is deliberately life-threatening by somebody who claims to have known. Because I asked Don point blank, I said, did he give you any indication that there was anything unsafe about the Jeep? And he said, no, the seller just was like, yeah, look how great it is. And so this to me was a sleazebag unloading on an unsuspecting. Yes, we can all go on about Don should have done his research. Don should have,
Don knows now.
Don knows now. So, Don's world, fortunate for him, there's a soft touch. And I hate to say it that way.
This is the good part of the story.
This is the good part. Ron, basically, who owns Red Scorpion Fab Works, didn't want to touch it because of the risk. Mm-hmm. But here was a fellow Jeeper in a world of hurt. Okay, not just the physical the Jeep damage, not just the financial. Well, I bought this Jeep and now I can't get it back. The money back.
A breach of trust.
It's a breach of trust, but it's just also as a father. This guy did this for his kid, and now the kid got shafted out of this thing too. And so Ron started calling in a few favors. Now let me back up. I'm sure some of you are asking, well, couldn't he have sued the guy? He could have, but Florida law is kind of funky. In most states, used cars aren't under the same lemon law coverage as new cars. It's very much a buyer beware, know. You've got to know your stuff when you're buying a used car. I hate to say that, or you really have to put your faith in the dealer or individual selling the car. Go ahead.
Well, there is an as-is clause in a lot of cars, but there is a tiny mechanical where the vehicle, if you buy a vehicle within 14 days, there is a small, very small window.
It must be suitable for the service intended or something
like that. Yeah, and it's like you get like 7 days.
Yeah.
You know, like if you buy a car and the engine locks up the next day, okay, you obviously you defrauded an innkeeper or whatever the word is. Hey, that's not the exact term, but like you have a certain time window. Now, if it's that time window passes, you know, hey, you bought it as is, buddy.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what happened here.
Yeah.
He had contacted a lawyer, and the lawyer had basically told him not much you can do.
Yeah.
You know, not much you can do since you weren't hurt. So Ron started looking around, and admittedly, Don went to several other shops. Some of them I know, and they were like, no, we're not going to play there. But Red Scorpion decided that we have a bay open at the moment.
Yeah.
And so Ron did some digging, and he found a frame, and in really good shape. And we will talk about financials towards the end of this, just so you understand that there's a whole picture here. Now, Don didn't have a lot of money. He'd spent most of it on the Jeep, spending on the kid, and everybody can claim that, but he truly did. He's like, you know, I've got some money that I can put towards this, but there's only a limit.
Times are tough for a lot of people.
And Ron was able to score the frame very reasonably priced, about $1,000 for the frame. And Don had enough money that, and fortunately he did. The seller of the frame, the facility that salvages the Jeeps, was able to also sell him the belly pan and the steering assembly that came with that frame. And I'll get to why that's critical here in a minute. As well as they had a chunk of the body harness that they were willing to sell. Score. Ron called me and asked me if I would come out and do a little, you know, consulting work and support work. Which I, you know, after hearing the story, I'm like, yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah.
You know, this one hit home. And so I went out there and took a look at it. And like everybody else was like, I can't believe this is on the road. And then also more along the lines of, I can't believe that some scumbag would pawn this off.
Blankety blank, blank, blank.
Blank, blank, blank. And so initially it was, okay, I'll help with, you know, I'll do the wiring. I'll fix the harness. I can do that.
You'll donate some time.
Particularly since we've got this donor harness that I think I can use for that whole part. And the more we got into it, Ron was looking at it going, you know, I've done frame off before with you before. He said, this is going to be kind of nasty. And I said, do we have the frame yet? He says, no, it's at media. Because Ron doesn't do things, you know, half beeped, if you know what I'm driving out there. This donor frame went to complete media blasting inside and out. Was checked, you know, stem to stern, and then it was painted. It was primed and painted inside and outside. Inside with the Eastwood spray system for inside frames till it ran out of places, and then on the outside was 2 coats of Rust-Oleum done by Don. Don's trying to. He didn't dump this problem on anybody else. He was there almost every single day he used up his sick leave and other things like that. So
he put some sweat equity into it.
He definitely did. And shout out for him. Plus, he now knows a whole lot more about his Jeep.
Yeah.
When we got it there and I started looking at it, and we was like, you guys realize that his is an 01. That's a Gen 1 TJ.
But aren't all Jeeps the same?
The frame is an 03. Which is a Gen 2 TJ.
Yeah.
And belly pans are different.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, and he goes, oh, well, I guess it's good. Let me go over to the car here, or, you know, what he was using. And he says, I think, I got the belly pan. I said, clean it up, get it painted, because the other one's not going to fit.
Yeah.
And then we turned around, and it was the same thing. I said, 03 is a transition year. Some had the Sagnaw steering box like your 01, but some had the Mercedes steering box like mine, and no, they don't bolt into each other's holes.
Yeah.
He's, well, I guess it's good the guy gave me the steering box and shaft. I said, yeah,
yes.
Okay. So we actually I'm not going to go into the technicals on the swap. And if you guys want to hear about the technicals, send us an email or a text and say, hey, we'll do a separate show on the technicals.
Yeah.
Long story short, I worked with Ron. I did my research, found out what they call the build sequence, the way the Jeep was put together. And the reason to do that was you work backwards on the build sequence before you separate the body from the frame, and you only disconnect what is necessary, and you don't do a lot of extra work.
Speeds up the putting together.
Big difference. The only change that we did was somehow the air conditioner system had survived the fire.
Yay! Florida's important.
Yeah, it is, but it was still charged.
Was it a Florida or sorry, was it a 4-cylinder or 6-cylinder Jeep?
It was a 6-cylinder.
Okay.
It was the 4-liter. And go ahead.
No.
He just had the raised eyebrows with I thought of something.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
I have to say something. It's very important. Very, very, very important. I have now released the Chewbacca from my AC system.
Oh.
Yes, I got my... If you own a TJ and the AC guy goes, hey, get this variable orifice tube. It's the stuff, man. It will make your AC blow better. No. Do not buy the $14 Chewbacca.
You turn off his Jeep and it goes...
It's like Chewbacca talking with a whale. And I pulled in, and like all the techs look at my Jeep going, what the heck? Are you like hailing a spaceship? What is that noise? Dude, is this thing powered by Chewbacca?
Yeah. It was bad.
And so I fixed it. And I even, as Kevin said, I did a trinary switch, and I'm now blowing at 40 degrees, by the way. So, okay. Sorry, the fat kid was happy he had AC. So anyway,
to bring some levity and humor into this.
It was funny. Dude, you're in the light.
Yeah.
As the AC goes, and then like the guy in the motorcycle looks next to you and go like, what? Is that the Jeep thing people talk about? I'm not supposed to understand.
Yeah, well,
you know,
in this case, it was.
Had Chewbacca's coming up to my house trying to hug onto my Jeep at night. But anyways, so the AC system was charged.
So the one thing that we did do that was different is we disconnected the power steering so we'd get to the compressor. We're able to unplug the compressor's control, but demount it and mount it to the fender well and say that the compressor wasn't part of the engine. In the Jeep world, when they assemble it, the compressor is part of the engine, and they make the connections and charge it later. We didn't want to do that. So we were able to remove the compressor and tie it to a fender well with some zip ties, and it became part of the body. Because the idea is you want everything body going one way and everything that's chassis drivetrain going the other.
Exactly.
So we started on a Tuesday. About noon was when the frame was delivered in the morning and was painted by noon. After a quick lunch, we reviewed it. We had the body and the old frame separated before business closing that night.
Yay.
Casualties in that were 4 broken body bolts. They were seized.
But you were expecting that, though.
We were expecting some of them, yes. But it was a part. So next morning, everybody comes in, and a few extra people had heard the story, and so we had a few other volunteers. So, and part to making this work was the pro bono work by a lot of people. And you know, while Ron was charging for his space, he was exceedingly reasonable for Don. You know, and it's rare people like Red Scorpion Fabworks that will take a hit in their pocketbook to offset
someone else's.
Yeah, someone else's. I was trying to struggle for the right word.
No, you were trying not to use a bunch of wordy nerds, and I'd have to sit here and go beep, 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 beep.
Exactly.
Introducing R2-D2 to the show.
So we got the body apart Tuesday. Wednesday, we started transferring the chassis components. But in that line, because the brakes were bad, we had to buy all brand new stainless steel brake lines, brand new master cylinder, brand new booster. Lines were all we cared about, but of course we had to transfer fuel lines. All of the componentry that's mounted to the frame that wasn't popped off and went with the body. And of course you discover things as you go along, like the fuel return line was rusted off.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, I'm surprised that thing wasn't spuking gas all over the place. He said, well, I could smell gas. I said, well, that's probably why. So
you go disconnect it, snap.
Yeah.
Oh, there goes that.
Well, that was the fuel supply side. The pump had to be replaced, not because the pump died, but the fitting, the 90-degree fitting at the top of the fuel pump that's soldered on broke free from corrosion when we took it apart. And everybody's like, well, why don't you solder it back on? I'm like, this thing has been drenched in gasoline for the last umpty-ump years and is soaked now from leaks. I'm not moving a torch anywhere close to this. Not for, a $40 gas pump.
Yeah.
We also took the tank and cleaned it. There was rust rampant everywhere that had been sprayed over. And that's Don's biggest thing. He sat there for 2 or 3 days with scrapers, sanders, and wire wheels. As pieces were done, he was cleaning off stuff, spraying it, and putting Rust-Oleum on it or some other rust encapsulant.
He was treating it.
He was taking care of everything. We were looking at every single part.
Yeah.
Going, okay, is this suitable for reuse? No. We had another Jeep that was out in the back parking lot that had been brought in that was in a similar state, but hadn't been sold that way.
Yeah.
But it gave up bits and pieces. The only downside on the frame was the clips that hold the brake lines and everything on had been cleaned off. And, of course, the ones on the rusty frame broke apart. So we had to get creative. We made some new clips that mounted them in and secured. But that took most of Wednesday. And by the end of Wednesday, the engine was in the new frame. The drive shafts were connected. The axles were underneath the suspension. The springs were in. The shocks were in. Everything was clean. Everything had been reviewed while we were there. So a couple of the volunteers came in and they drained the pumpkins and refilled the gears. They flushed. They changed out the transmission fluid. The gear oil was a manual. They changed out the transfer case. They did an oil change, put plugs in. They gave it a full top-end service. This became a NASCAR pit crew working around that frame.
Yeah, you really rallied around it.
Literally. And that was Wednesday and Thursday morning. Yeah.
What days were the tetanus shots? Sorry, I had to do that.
Well, it's funny you say that because every night I was sweeping up under the work area because it was completely just rust. It was different. For those of us who carried the new frame in and carried the old one out, the old one was remarkably lighter.
Didn't you guys just use a leaf blower on the old frame to get rid of it?
Just about.
Okay.
Folks, it was literally so weak that we went to pick it up and it was cracking and bending. And
you didn't have to use a Sawzall. You just
we did. We used the Sawzall just because it was quicker and easier to go. And it was in 4 pieces. And the scrap metal guy almost didn't want to take it because he's like, "There's not that much metal left."
Yeah. Wait, we don't recycle
rust.
Foam.
Yeah, but to give you an idea of the foam damage, the driver's side rear suspension mount for the lower control arm and upper control arms, where they meet right on that curve, somebody had welded a patch over the outside of the frame in 1/8" sheet metal, which is undersized. The frame is 3/16, but at least that was there because there was nothing on the inside.
Yeah.
The upper was kind of hanging on a little tighter, but the bottom mount was held on by a piece of 1/8" sheet metal about 3 inches long.
Yeah.
And that was it. If he'd hit one good hard trail obstacle, he'd have ripped the rear axle off.
That was almost a unibody.
You're very close to it.
Yeah.
And so by Thursday afternoon, I was standing in the engine bay. I'd lowered the body down, where I could stand inside with the hood flipped back and commenced ripping out the brake booster, the master cylinder, the proportioning valve, this piece of stuff that's sitting in front of the wiring harness. There were 3 separate sublooms that were burnt up. It looks like Scott's going to take a picture or two and maybe post it for those that want to see it. One of the pictures is a glob with a pin sticking out of the end of it, and that's actually the connection to the brake warning light system. Yep, that one. There's also a blob in the middle that's really, truly a connector. That one right there is the connector.
I'm going to show the Patreons. Right there.
That blob is a connector that will never come apart again. Wire insulation completely burned off.
Yeah.
Just bare copper here, bare copper there.
There a bear, here a bear, everywhere a bear,
Yeah.
bear. Sorry, I couldn't resist
So, fortunately, he did get another harness, and most of the pieces were correct. And so it was kind of fun because everybody's watching the crazy guy who does electrical stuff.
that. You were in your ballywick, man.
They were all like, "So what are you going to do with that?" And I says, "Really? Well, you see this?" And I held up this piece like this, and I said, "Yeah." I said, "This is kind of beyond fixing. So Oh, look, there's insulation comes back here. They said, so what are you going to do? Snip.
Yeah.
And at that point, he goes, well, now we're at the point of no return. I said, you were long past the point of no return.
Yeah. That ship sailed.
That ship sailed a long time ago.
When you when the previous owner made the form filled
Right.
the foam to.
But when I went over to the harness and found the whole length, and I said, see, there's your whole piece, complete with wraps and everything, and went and cut it. And we did what's called a staggered splice so that none of the wires, interfered with the others in the harness. And that one went in, and he's like, well, that's not so bad. But that's a full replacement style. Okay. And you use a crimp. Now you can use solder if you want, but I like the mechanical crimp like the factory uses. It's a tinned copper tube. You buy it in the right gauges, and you do a crush system on it. And then I'll be honest, I overkill. I do a 3-point covering. I do the crush. I do an adhesive marine grade waterproof heat seal, and then I slide a wear seal over that, which is heat shrink that the watertight stuff is gummy and soft to keep it watertight, so it doesn't wear well if it gets rubbed.
Yeah.
And I get the harder, thinner stuff that I put on the outside of that, which then creates an abrasion-resistant coating.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody coming back for my work.
Yeah.
The second loom was, we started looking at it, and it really only had one wire that was charred. You did have to peel off all of the split loom, but it had died to protect the wires and done a great job. Just one cable that went into another one of these 4-wire blue connectors.
Right.
And he's like, so we're going to cut and replace those 4. I said, nope, I'm not going to chew up good factory wires.
Yeah.
Splices are always a source of potential problems. He says, so what are you going to do? And I showed him how to take the little liner in the nose, and this one it's blue. That one was blue too. And I hook it with a little tool and go ping, and it comes out. And I said, see down there, and there's a little lever, and you lift it with a very tip of a pointed spear, one of the little proby things, and bloop, out came the pin. And then I'm going down that wire down. Here we are. There's unburned insulation. Are we good? Yeah. Snip, take it over the harness, find that wire, snip, undo that connector, pull the pin out, and I repinned that one wire, did one splice.
Right.
And that put that harness back in business. Now, yes, I had to reloom and rejoin everything, put all the mounts and the clips because they were just absolutely trashed. And then the last one was simply the washer bottle. And Chrysler chose to run that circuit all the way up around the fender, up to the headlights, and back down to the washer bottle. And I'm like,
the thumb's route to get to your tuchus.
I'm just going to shorten the sucker back up. And I just took out the 4 or 5 inches of chard in the middle and rerouted it in front of the horns, but behind the water bottle, which left plenty of room to plug it back in.
Yeah.
Then we went on the chase for vacuum lines, reconnected, got everything cleaned up, and then came the new marriage,
Right.
Scott's taking more pictures. We wheeled the chassis in. Before that, then I had to spend the last part of Thursday with Tommy at Red Scorpion. Tommy, thank you again, wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
He sat with me, and we fussed and fought for 4.5 hours on body mounts.
Yeah.
To the point of fabricating some new tabs, sliding them in, just yada, 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 yada. There was a few unpleasant words said.
That explains a blushing sailor in the corner.
Yeah, you got it.
What would you do with the blushing sailor? No, sorry.
So Friday morning, the chassis rolled in, and all hands on deck. There were 4 of us watching the corners. We lowered her down, squirmed it around a little bit, threw a jack under one end, moved the frame, kind of leaned on the body of the other, and she lined up. Bolts went in, started making connections. Unfortunately, I will admit that it wasn't until we did our cold start that we saw the gas leak, so the gas tank had to come back out again for the pump replacement. I wish we had noted that before. But as we went through, made all the connections, but the key thing was we turned the key and she fired up. Not only did she fire
I was going to
up,
say, you got to tell the story.
when we found out from Don, he says, yeah, there was check engine lights on the O2 things and things like that. And I was going to look into those, but now I guess we'll have to see what we can do. She fired up with no codes, no check engine light.
All that for a check engine light.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And she rolled out Friday afternoon on her own 4 wheels, actually sitting pretty, got a front end alignment.
Yeah.
Basically, I'm not going to say a new Jeep, but she came in as a rolling death trap, and she rolled out, and she's got a full life ahead of her. Now, there's still the two fenders and the two floor pans that Don's dad's going to help him weld in, but that's going to be, granddaddy, dad, and daughter project.
Yeah.
And the new brakes, the new boosters, we pressure bled the system, made sure that it was holding tight. The Jeep steered straight. It rode completely different. Imagine that.
Yeah.
So the truth is, can you do a frame swap? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Is it easy? No.
Yeah.
But it's doable with the right equipment and a lot of understanding about what you're doing with. And a dad now has a Jeep to pass on to his daughter.
And that's some of the really interesting things, because I can hear the typing now. Why go through all of that just to do that? Cut your losses, blah, blah, blah. We see all day long posts on the Jeep pages, hey, what do you guys think? Should I buy this Jeep? It's got rusties. Harken back to my first statement about the LJ. Here's the thing about LJs. We know they're rare. Finding an LJ frame is hard.
Yep.
So would this story work in case of that? I don't know. But if you have the skills and the tools and all that, and it's within your wheelhouse and you really wanted to chase that dream, well, that's an answer that's a question you have to answer yourself.
Well, that's a nice segue into the third part of my story, which is to discuss the financials a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, everybody goes, oh, he should have just scrapped the Jeep and bought another one. Or he should have gone back and tried to sue. I don't think the lawsuit would have worked.
Yeah.
I'm not a lawyer, so please don't take that as legal advice. But given the fact that it's a 2001 used Jeep in 2021, all right, it's a 20-year-old vehicle. It's pretty much what we would call sunk costs.
Yeah.
They're gone. You're not going to recover them. The scrap value wasn't going to be that great. So he had choice of scrap the vehicle. I don't have anything new. I got to go buy something else for my daughter.
Right.
Or B, see if he can get it fixed. And if so, what's the value of the fix versus the value of the vehicle? Am I going to literally put myself completely upside down? And the answer is, in a normal shop, yes, you would. But here's what he came out with. Now, in this case, I'm not going to give you the exact numbers because I wasn't the guy charging and that. Ron, my work was pro bono. Several other folks came in pro bono.
Right. The cost of the fire too.
Yeah, and those kinds of things. But what you're looking at is, I think it cost him around an additional $5,000 to $6,000 above what he paid for the Jeep. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't think he paid that much for the Jeep, and I think it may have been in the 10 to 11. So he could be anywhere from 15 to 17, maybe as high as 18,000 out the door. That may sound a little bit high for you, but in the Tampa region, a solid TJ, almost of any year, is going to be 15 to 18,000. This one is now, and that's the key fact, he knows this Jeep now intimately. Mm-hmm. He knows it's a solid frame. He knows the condition of the suspension. Yes. He knows it's got new brake lines. He knows it's got new tires and wheels. He knows that Jeep. While this work was being done, he got to see the differentials and then change the fluid. He got to see the transfer case, and we added an SYE kit to it, kind of thing. Yeah. So out the door, he got a new fuel pump, Yeah. So he has a sense of reliability and comfort that might be worth that charge. Was it a premium? Yes, it was a premium. I hate to say that for Don's sake, but he now has a solid Jeep with which to carry on with his family.
Anybody who's done anything about cars or watching anything on TV, that frame off restorations are expensive.
Yep.
There's downtime of the vehicle. There's paying the premium of the mechanics and the technicians to do that work. He literally has a frame off restoration already completed on the mechanical bits of the vehicle, which are the life and soul of the vehicle. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So again, that's an answer to a question to me. If you were to buy a solid TJ with nothing done to it. And again, I can hear everyone talk, well, I could buy one for $5,000 all day long. Okay, cool.
Maybe you can.
But maybe you
we
can.
Can't hear.
But we can't hear that's worth anything. We can buy 4-cylinder models and ones that have been beaten up in the swamps. Oh, yeah, sure, all day long. But a clean TJ. So if you buy a clean TJ with no modifications, let's say for $12,000. Let's say you found a deal, okay? You found a newer model TJ for $12,000. You're going to go add a lift kit to it.
Yep.
There's $1,000. You're going to add wheels and tires. There's $2,000 to it. You want to add a locker or something else to it. Now you're at $4,000. Oh, it needs an oil change, differential, brakes, and all that. Okay, now you're at $5,000. So you put $5,000 on a clean Jeep. When he put $5,000 on an already modified Jeep, that's money that he's not going to have to spend right now or down the road. So to me, it balances out.
It's close. And I'm not trying to sell. Well, the key here is, folks, I'm not trying to sell you that this was a good idea financially. It wasn't. Okay.
Jeeps are never a good idea financially.
Okay, it flat out. However, it didn't hurt as bad. And honestly, from the safety and understanding what you're handing off to your family members to drive, he's actually in better shape than most of us are. Okay, short of somebody who's a mechanic who goes through the vehicle themselves. Although Ron will be the first one to tell you that mechanics usually have the worst vehicles because they know what the noise is and tend to live with it.
They don't want to work on it because that's all they do all day long.
So financially, it hurt. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
And Don is out of pocket money that he thought he had for other things, but the feeling of relief that he's not in a total loss, because that's what you have to compare, is that okay, he had to add $5,000 to the mix or scrap it and have nothing.
Yeah.
And at that point, it doesn't look so bad.
No, it really doesn't.
And it may be a little off. Don't hold me to my numbers.
How much would it be to buy another vehicle?
Well, yeah, then you'd have another vehicle on top of that, either a monthly payment or, heaven forbid, a whole another $20,000.
Yeah,
yeah. Now, I do have to add some cautionary tales to this. All right. In this particular instance, the Jeep frame that we got had no VIN number stenciled into it, and we were able to change it and not affect the VIN tracking on the vehicle because bodies have VIN numbers in certain locations. Later models of vehicles have the VIN on the frame. Many states, yours may be different. If your frame VIN doesn't match your body VIN, you may have to file for a reconstructed title. Okay.
Right.
There are conditions about this beyond the mechanical side. That did not apply here in Florida. Also, it would not apply because there was without a VIN on the piece, the major piece, it's a part. Whereas if it's a VIN on it, a lot of states say, no, that's part of a vehicle,
Yeah.
So
that's why you see on the front of 18-wheelers, these parts are permanently marked.
yeah, exactly. Let's see.
Well, I could just byline real quickly while you do research. One of the things that everyone kind of quick to, we'll just scrap it, get away, start new again and all that. Here's another thing, another option to keep on. Not again, does he know the inner workings, but he also kept a TJ on the road.
He did. There is a TJ out there now that will have a life quite a ways beyond what it would have had, had it been left alone. Yep. There were some, like I said, when you pursue these projects, you have to have the mindset, and I give Don full kudos for this. He didn't like it, but he accepted the fact that there were going to be collateral expenses.
Yeah.
You don't think a frame replacement is going to lead you to a new fuel pump, but he didn't hesitate. He bought it.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't think that replacing a frame is going to mean, well, I need to have my side marker lights and turn signal lights rewired because the last guy just uncovered some really bad work. All right. But he went ahead and rolled with it. We replaced those parts. We fixed those kinds of things.
In for a penny, in for a pound.
In for a penny, in for a pound in this case. We went through every system that we touched and tried to bring it back to, if you're in inspection state, it would be an inspectable status. Yeah. When you're in there, it's like, well, we're in there. So he went out and he bought gear lube. He bought transmission gear oil. He bought transfer case. You see what I'm going with this?
Yeah.
We broke
he got spark plugs.
Yeah, he got new spark plugs put in, and we found a lot of things that rust had eaten away. Like I said, all of the mounts that mount all of the brake lines, fuel lines, wiring loom to the back of the Jeep from the front of the Jeep were gone, broken, zip tied together. Could we have put it back with zip ties? We could have. I wouldn't have been happy, so we didn't. We actually made new mounts, fastened them to the frame, put the lines on using the old bracketry, even though the mounts were broken off, to help hold the spacing in between. So now you get under there, it's wired like a TJ. The color codes on the wiring matches. It's a TJ wiring, so that future mechanics probably won't even know there's a splice in there.
Won't have that obligatory red wire hanging off your firewall like you did?
Yeah. Don't tempt me to go replace that, now that I have a donor harness.
Hey, I'm shaking the mongoose cage, man. I'm enjoying this.
So there's a lot to it that if you're pursuing one of these, you're going to find stuff that you didn't expect.
Yeah.
We found the fact that his shift boot, both the outer shift boot and the inner shift boot, about those.
Oh, yes.
Were missing.
Yeah.
They were torn up, and the one in the cab was okay.
The expensive one was not.
But the expensive one was not. And lo and behold, we had a donor Jeep out there that had a pretty good gash in it, but it was at least there.
Yeah.
So
serviceable.
Serviceable. So Don was lucky.
Yeah.
He found the right shop with the right attitude,
with the right help.
People. And then, the Jeep community here is strong. The Jeep community rallied for him. He came out of it a little better than I probably would have expected. As I said, if you guys are interested in the step-by-step talk about a frame swap, give us a shout. I've got it. I actually wrote the steps up so we wouldn't forget anything. And I was really surprised that my checklist was about 94% accurate. There were a couple things that kind of shifted around. Again, I didn't think about the air conditioner till we were there going, I don't really want to vent this system and then have to have it recharged if there's enough flux in the hoses, kind of thing. And we didn't expect to need to rip the steering components and change them out because, the frame year didn't match the body year. Little things like that. And we told him, I said, you now have a Johnny Cash Jeep. And for those that don't know the reference, Johnny Cash did a great song about a Cadillac.
One piece at a time.
One piece at a time. And it's a fun one to listen to. And now he's got there's some 01 pieces. There's some 03 pieces. There's a couple of 05s scraps that I donated and a few other from different years that we had to do some creative reconstruction. As Scott said, the end result is, I think, he spent a little more money. I got a little more angry, but I'm over it now, unless I meet
No, you're not. I was going to say, you see this person on the road.
But the Jeep is back on the road.
Yeah. The daughter's
safe.
It's
safe to drive.
Yeah.
A father will teach his child how to off-road and wheel and enjoy the environment.
And made some good friends.
And made some great friends. It made some great friends. So that's been kind of a long, drawn-out show here. Yeah. But I wanted to share that with you. Again, I'm looking for your feedback, your thoughts, comments on it. Admittedly, I'm very one-sided on this, but it was an interesting week working in the shop and bringing a Jeep back from the dead.
Yeah, back from rust in peace.
Yes.
Ooh, that'd be a good name for the show. Rest in peace. So anyways, real quickly, I do want to, before we shut this down, I do want to make a quick statement. Hopefully the next show will cover, because here in Florida, we had a rash of Jeep thefts.
Yeah.
And so we're going to do some research on this subject, but it concerns 2018 to 20 Jeeps with the keyless entry with a push-button start. And pretty much any keyless entry vehicle or push-button start is susceptible to it. So do some research on that. We're going to do some research ourselves because we had a rash. They said in our little
one neighborhood,
3 Jeeps in less than an hour, and then they said statewide was a total of 25 Jeeps in like one night.
Yeah.
So there's some interesting things. We're going to do some research because we'd rather have the correct information, but a very quick cursory. What word am I trying to say here, Kevin?
A cursory summary.
Thank you. There are Faraday cage key pouches you can keep. They say to keep your key away from the front door, and if you need to, you can cover your key in aluminum foil. That will also work in a pinch. But some say throw it in the microwave. And then people go, but but what if you hit the microwave? I said, I don't know about most people, but I don't like go to make popcorn, hold the popcorn in my hand and hit 2 minutes in the microwave. I usually open the door. Oh my God, there's keys in there.
Well,
I don't recommend doing that.
and just that's almost too much of a teaser, Scott. It has to do with the fact that the Jeep's proximity to the key, the distance, is long. For some reason, Chrysler put the distance. The key can be quite a ways from the vehicle, and the vehicle still says, "Oh, you're here." I know the counter. I was reading that, going, "What the hell?" I went out and looked at my wife's Mercedes, which has a proximity key, push to start, and the whole nine. And I tell you what, if I'm more than a foot past the front bumper, it won't open. It won't do anything.
Well, I know in the Gladiator, like I've had my key like next to me, like. I just lean in. It's in my left pocket. I lean in to hit the button to turn the radio on, and it says key not detected.
Well,
I'm like, okay.
And that's a good thing, folks.
Yeah. Well, see, what I did is I took the charger key I had,
and
I put the battery and threw it near the front, so that way they're going to get that key code.
Okay.
It won't open.
But that's the whole purpose here. And we'll go more into the story.
I want to do more detail on it.
And there's all kinds of comments about how to protect yourself in your Jeep. And it's pretty simple, The easiest thing I can think of is if you're like me and you use a bowl to put your keys in. Mine's a wicker basket that I put all the car keys in. Maybe I'll go get a little metal bowl. Well, that's going to give you a shielding.
Another thing you can do, like I do with the LJ, is I use a steering wheel lock. It's a 6-speed. I take the anchor chain up through the seat and go through there and lock it and do all that. And everyone's like, "That's a bit." Do you have any idea how hard it is to find an LJ? You have any idea how hard it is to find a Rubicon LJ 6-speed? I'm using the steering wheel lock, the 6-speed, the chain going through the seat brackets, through the steering wheel, snap it. He thinks I'm kidding.
No, I'm not, but I'm also
the chain is in the back of the Jeep.
I can show you the best way to secure the thing, but we won't say it on air.
Hey, teaser.
So with that, folks, thanks for sharing my little diatribe and frustrations. And again, I welcome alternate thoughts and processes, and it just frustrates me that people would take advantage of somebody and put their life in danger,
knowing they're going to give it to their daughter.
Yeah. So with that, I will crawl down off my soapbox, dust it off, put the cover back over it so it becomes a nice little finished settee in the corner of the room, and we will move on. So as we've always said before, I think we beat this subject to death. Time to lock up, put her in 4-low, and hit the trails.
And as always, make sure to check us on the next show of On the Trail with Kevin and Scott. But before you do that, though, make sure to pick up your trash. Take nothing but pictures. Hold on, no, I'm going to get this right. Make sure to take nothing but pictures and memories and your trash when you leave the trail.
Please, we want them to be there for our kids later.
And I can promise you, this is a Scott's promise. Next episode, I'll still mess up the intro and outro.
The sad thing is he doesn't even have to try.
And a big thank you to all of our corporate Patreons. So with that, have a great night, and we'll see you on the next one.
All right, bye now.
Bye. Bye, Patreons.
Proceeding has been provided for entertainment only. Proper service and repair procedures are vital to the safe, reliable operation of all motor vehicles, as well as personal safety of those performing those repairs. Standard safety procedures and precaution, including the use of safety goggles and proper tools and equipment, should be followed at all times to eliminate the possibility of personal injury or improper service which could damage the vehicle or compromise its safety.
What he said. Thanks a lot for listening, guys. You guys have a great day.
Bye.
This has been a Bent Axle Media production.